one of the things that Nandan Nilekani said to us at the FVCFO Awards was that, in America, when digital exploded, they created monopolies. In
Hmm.
India, at least in the fintech world, we kind of democratized data and allowed many people to kind of coexist. Um, Percy, do you agree with that? That the way the digital world, especially in the US, is geared for winner take all,
Mhm.
and that's not quite the case in India.
I would say so. I think what he has done with that whole payments and UPI thing to a large extent has democratized that universe and that ecosystem. Like I'll give you our example, Anant. Like back in the day when we had before Aadhaar, I'm talking about a pre-Aadhaar world, which is again Nandan. If I had to open an account and these people could not e-sign and use Aadhaar to open an account, you needed to have physical presence in all these tiny tier 2 tier 3 towns, which in turn would have led me to have to charge 5 times more than I charge right now to for the product to remain feasible. I think a lot of this has democratized the ecosystem in such a way that we sitting in Bangalore, two kids with not too much capital, can think of starting a company like this, and that same thing applies to two kids sitting somewhere else today. uh, Now I saw the new policy, recommendations and stuff like that, where uh, even though the government entities have become so big and they want further fragmentation in that, so it does not become like this one thing. If it fails, the entire backbone of our ecosystem fails. The changes around that will be interesting to see, but I think all of these changes have led to increased democratization.
Post liberalization, the interesting part of Indian businesses that did well were the ones that did well in spite of government and not because of it. But in the digital world, especially if you look again globally, if you're looking at it, if you don't have the hand of government behind you, uh, especially look at China, for instance, right? It's so much of government involved. Even in the US in the early stages, if you didn't have government behind you, you couldn't get to this kind of stage. In India, is that the case? I mean, do you need government to get to a certain scale, or would you rather stay out?
I personally, subscribe. There is this school of thought called laissez-faire, right? Like let things be. I feel lesser involvement from the government and more freeing up of the ecosystem will go a longer way in democratizing and growing the ecosystem than the government coming in and trying to, govern which direction what goes in.
But when you see the valuation of Tesla, which is more than all the traditional auto
Yeah.
companies, or the valuation of
Base.
uh, Coinbase, that
Hmm.
was more than I think two of the largest three
Yeah.
banks of
Yeah.
US happening. Um, that arbitrage. So firstly, do you see that happening in India? Uh, uh, you know, you're expecting a correction at some point, but do you see that happening at some point? And secondly, again, would that have happened if government wasn't backing these companies?
See, Coinbase, at least there is a revenue component, right? I think they're on track to make $2 billion or $1.7 billion of revenue this year, justified to a certain extent. Tesla, I think, is a moonshot, but we are not looking upon it as a moonshot. We are expecting cars by 2030, 2040, whatever, will all be electric, and Tesla will have X amount of market share in that, and valuing the company like that event has already occurred. In my own hypotheses, I think that is flawed. I think the odds of that happening, even if they are very high, I don't think the valuation for Tesla is justified.
Government wasn't involved, would these valuations have sort of been justified? I mean, not justified, but I mean, could these valuations have been achieved if government kind of, in some sense, wasn't encouraging?
I think the see now this is a tough one because do the people of the country wait up until the government does something around climate change because they see floods and cyclones and the world around them ending, or do people realize it on their own when they see floods and droughts and hurricanes happening? Now, I would assume even if the government did not interfere, like if we saw people, our friends and relatives dying in floods, and if we were to draw a conclusion that that is happening because of climate change, we would be organically incentivized to go out there and buy an electric car versus buying a gas guzzling car. Can the government expedite that process? Yeah, sure, they can. I mean, In some cases they have, and in some cases they have not. But I think it's a 50-50. The government can come in, play a significant role and expedite it, because at the end of the day, government has more access to information and kind of knows better than the people of country what is happening across the world. But it can also be the opposite. Government can be very short-sighted in their view and focus on increasing their GDP and stuff like